While it's unclear what the reopening of the economy is going to look like, there's certainly a great deal of anticipation. Unemployment has surged as non-essential businesses remain shut down. Carolee McGrath spoke to Rick Sullivan, the president and CEO of the Western Mass Development Council, to learn the latest about the local impact.
I think Governor Baker's done, a nice job of doing it, following the advice of the medical professionals. And it's not something that I think you can just flip a switch and open everything back up. So I'm not surprised that we're sitting here today and having those discussions. In fact, I'm on a call tomorrow with a number of the other chambers in terms of advising the governor's reopening committee on some of the issues that the local businesses here see in terms of what they have to overcome to reopen.
Why don't you tell us about some of those issues that you're hearing from those members?
It kind of runs the gamut. I think first and foremost, all of the companies are, understanding and really want to make sure that we do it correctly and follow the advice of the medical professionals. So I think you will see, a phased opening. No one's looking to rush to open. I think you've seen some sectors where perhaps there can be some faster phasing than others. People certainly have talked about golf courses and some of those types of venues. They've also relaxed a bit the retail delivery for flowers, certainly coming into Mother's Day. They've worked it out in the food industry, so certainly other items such as flowers could be delivered as well. So it was good to see that moved forward. To concerns about some of the PPP requirements in terms of how fast the government is expecting the economy to ramp up, and so staffing agencies and some manufacturers are very concerned that it's not going to ramp up as quickly as the government requirements are, so that PPP is in fact a grant and not a loan. So some of the companies and some of the staffing agencies are certainly looking for some relief, which I think is reasonable, because that is the way it's going to open up in phases. So in order to be compliant, I do think there needs to be some more time. And then just some things that are everyday business and life issues, such as childcare. And being able to open up some of the child care for some non-emergency frontline workers, which are currently open. There's designated places for first line families, but some of the other individuals that would be going back to work are going to need the daycare. Some issues like transportation and those issues are really what has come up.
Do you think some of these businesses will continue to modify and try to do more of that work online or remotely?
Well, I do think that is actually an opportunity for Western Massachusetts, because I do believe that one of the things that has come out of this is that there are many individuals and many parts of a company or a business that can effectively and efficiently work from home and be very productive, whether it's at their homes or telecommuting or back office that is less expensive and less crowded here in Western Massachusetts than it would be say in the eastern part of the state. So I do think we have many members that are banks, and certainly mobile banking and other types of telecommuting, working from home options for some of their back office has been very productive for them. And so you'll look to see that continue, I think, as well. But I actually think that does, as I said, become an economic development opportunity for Western Massachusetts.
Can you talk a little bit about the areas and the sectors that have been hardest hit? I would assume hospitality, retail among them.
Sure. I mean, they're certainly at the top of the list. Certainly any kind of tourist, the casinos, for instance, they obviously have lost a number of months here. And it's going to look very different, when they are allowed to start to open up, and it's going to be in stages. But certainly the smaller restaurants, they've tried, to be able to do, delivery and takeout, but they're missing other parts of their business model. They certainly don't have as many people eating at the restaurant. They lose a large part of their beverage service, which is an important part of their cash flows and their business models. So, they have absolutely been hit, but, even other small Main Street type companies that are, boutique or, selling products that were listed as, not being essential. And they don't even have that opportunity to be doing, takeout or home delivery in many cases. So those very small companies, the businesses, the mom and the pops, those are absolutely been hit very, very hard.
You talked a little bit about essential, and I think people have been very patient for a long time, but you see some of the protests around the country and even in Boston recently where people are saying, hey, listen, we understand frontline workers and certainly respect that, but my job is essential too. This is what people are saying because I'm the breadwinner or I have to put food on the table. How are you helping people, through that, this very difficult time? We have more than 700,000 unemployment claims since mid-March.
So we have, we have been a resource, for companies, in terms of, the unemployment issues, certainly PPP, essential businesses. We did work with a number of companies, getting them listed as essential so that they could be up and running to provide those jobs, because that is certainly, an issue when you've been deemed a non-essential worker and unemployment. And I know the government upped the unemployment benefits to try to get people through that time, but there's certainly an understanding of the fact that people do need to be going back to work. It needs to be done smartly. I do think, while you are seeing the protests spring up, I do think that, people do have to be more than just say they're respectful of the people serving the front lines, particularly our medical personnel. People do need to be following the rules and the regulations and the quarantine requirements and certainly the social distancing, because otherwise you're just making their job that much more difficult. You're increasing the demand at the hospitals and the frontline healthcare workers. And, I do understand that frustration, but at the end of the day, we have to treat our frontline, particularly our medical and first responding individuals with the respect that they really deserve. They've done a hero's job here.
And how long do you think it'll take us to come back? I know that there had been some hope of pent-up demand, but it sounds like it's going to roll out slowly.
Yeah, I do think it's going to roll out slowly. I don't think it's going to be, tomorrow or next week or even next month. I think it's going to be, a slow rollout. I don't expect that the economy is going to have, an immediate upward trajectory and just go back to the way things were, in January. So I do think it's going to be slower than that. There's certainly going to be a lot of pain for a lot of companies because it isn't going to happen, overnight. And so I don't think that the unemployment is just miraculously going to go down immediately. And it is going to be a slow rollout. And so I do think that many of the programs that, the local government and state and federal, have rolled out have got to be understanding of the fact that this is going to be, a longer return to normal, whatever that new normal is, than just an immediate flip the switch and we're right back to where we were in January.